Will, if he logs in, or some of the other people, just, nudge them along. And then why don't we go live? And then I think we might have a couple more board members joining us. Kevin's going to join late. And anyway, so, and then yell at me if I do anything wrong, because like I said, I'm a Zoom caveman. So I'm going to hit broadcast, I guess. Is that what I'm supposed to do? Yeah.
That's it.
I'm broadcasting, Alex. So
Alex, you beat me to it.
You're rocking it.
Just getting on LinkedIn to connect to you all, and I got an invitation from Alex.
This is like my first like professional function in like 3 weeks now. So I'm like, getting back into the swing of things.
Yeah.
Alex just had a baby, or he didn't have a baby. Yeah. Him and his wife had a baby. Yay!
You don't look tired.
Yes. So
today's been a good day.
Yeah, congratulations, buddy. So
thank you.
So we're well, welcome to everybody who's gathering in here. We'll see how many people. Like I said, I'm.
Oh, cool. Yeah, folks are starting to come in now.
Okay, good.
It's always funny, right? Like, because I'm like enough out of the game now, but I still see like all of these students that came through prototype. Like, oh, I know who that is. Like, oh man, I wonder what they're like. That's good. So it's good.
Yeah, I don't know how many total we'll have tonight. Obviously, we got some here to start off, and maybe people will be joining. And I need to be checking my email in case like people couldn't figure out how to log in or whatever. But anyways, so it's a little bit after here, so we'll start. So for people joining us, my name is Mike Bradley. Hopefully my lighting in my hotel room looks okay here. I'm in Seattle, Greater Seattle. For those of you who are going to be able to come out tomorrow night to the function in Bremerton, I will be there in person. So about 6 years ago, a couple of Nuke buddies and I started this nonprofit where we mentor Nukes on career transition, just career advice. Life coach is another term. And we did everything in person for the longest time. And now we do virtual stuff because I see people here from East Coast. I see people here from Hawaii. I see people, so you can see the benefit of that. I've not assembled, that makes it, I have begged and borrowed and asked a lot of these people here to help me give career advice. So tonight, it's just kind of an open format as far as for those of you that are able to chat in questions. If you have questions, there's none of us are here recruiting for our companies. We are here as your older siblings that have got out 5, 10, years prior to you, that are in different career fields. We have a nice smattering tonight, some engineering, some finance, different coasts, renewable energy, space, like legit engineering, entrepreneurship stuff. So I think we'll be able to answer a lot of questions. And then tomorrow night, you will have a couple of us in person. It'll be Mary Coyne, who will introduce herself very shortly, myself. We'll have a guy named Nick Garaci, who is in space, that he will be there, not recruiting for his company, but he can talk to that. And then we have somebody that's a lawyer, a Nuke turned lawyer, if you're interested in law. Tonight, I'm represented. Anybody that wants to go into the medical community, it's probably not a question we'll talk about at length, but we often have a couple Nukes that have gone medicine login, and we have a board member that answers those questions, so maybe stuff for the chat. So we'll try to talk about live on the air questions that are for the bulk of you, and then if you have questions that I think more chat-worthy questions, chat us up. But first, I'll introduce myself, and then we'll go around the room. My name is Mike Bradley. I'm grew up in Western Pennsylvania, Naval Academy class 2001. I was an electrical engineering major. I did boomers out of Kings Bay for my sea tour, DCA, MPA, QAO docking officer, and then I did my short tour in DC. First, I did a augmentation to the Guantanamo Bay war crimes trial, and then I did 2 years working at the National Reconnaissance Office. So I was on a low Earth orbit satellite, LSPO there, and doing SIGINT type stuff. As a submarine officer, I wasn't EDO at that time, and almost stayed in Navy space. But then my wife and I had 3 kids in 2 years, and moved back to Pennsylvania, and we've been telecommuting ever since. And like I said, we started this up a couple years ago doing nonprofit. I do some consulting work on the side. I do some Airbnb stuff on the side, entrepreneurship, startup stuff. But most of my time I spend doing this nonprofit. So, anyways, so how about we'll go, Eric? Can you introduce yourself next? Tell everybody about yourself and what you do.
Sure. Eric Anderson. I did ROTC at Illinois. Then my JO tour was on USS Texas out of Hawaii from 2013 to 2015. Went from there to Power School. I think I see 1 or 2 of my students, so hello. Good to see you. Left Power School in 2018. Got out of the Navy at that point and joined a private equity firm called Partners Group. So for private equity, probably sounds fairly unfamiliar for most people, but the long and short of it is we buy and sell companies on behalf of our investors for a profit, or we attempt to do a profit. So our firm is about, let's call it $120 billion of assets under management. About 50% of that is invested in the US in private equity, private debt, private infrastructure. So my job is I sit on our private equity team as a senior associate looking at new investments, as well as working with management teams at the investments we currently have. So I work with 3 companies in the industrial services or manufacturing space. One is a global die cast and investment cast part manufacturer. One is an underground utility locator, and then the last one is a commercial HVAC service business. So I'll do projects on operational excellence, sales excellence, leadership, governance, you name it, whatever it takes to help our companies grow on behalf of my company's 250 million pensioners, investors, you name it. I also haven't completely kicked the Navy habit. I'm still in the reserves. I've been doing that for almost 3.5 years now. So I can speak to that as well. So that's me.
Thank you, Eric. One of the questions I often get asked is about a lot of JOs want to know whether they should get their MBA and graduate education is a big question. And one of the reasons you would get your MBA is to do what Eric's doing right now, even though he didn't have to do that, but that's often one of the reasons you do get your MBA. So we might talk about that later. So thank you, Eric. Sarah, can you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Class of 2000 from the University of Michigan ROTC. This was back when they did nuke tours, conventional first, then power school prototype, then the carrier. I was on the Reagan when she tried to reverse power shore power. That was fun. Then I decided I was going to retire. I got offered an opportunity to instead lateral transfer out of the nuke community and to be a conventional EDO. So I jumped on that. I chose the longest program that NPS had available. And so by default, that was a space systems program. And that was how I got into space. And that sent me off into the satellite acquisitions world. I spent the last half of my career doing satellite acquisition, space systems engineering type stuff. I retired in, last year, September of last year. And I've been working for a startup, very small startup, providing systems engineering services to the Navy, actually to the National Geospatial Agency through the Navy. So from nuclear power to rocket science to AI and ML that I'm doing now. So I've kind of done it all. I dabble.
And Sarah, you're also teaching, you're an adjunct?
Oh, yep. I am an adjunct professor at the University of San Diego. Just through the power of networking, I got a dream job. And I teach a business school course in decision making. And what that really boils down to is using numbers to help you make decisions. So, and we are all good at math. So you could teach this too. And I do not have an MBA, and I teach in the business school.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah. So Sarah retired 05. You were a commander?
Yep. 05. Got out right before I would have gone to board for 06.
Awesome. Well, congratulations.
20 years and 9 days.
Very efficient. Nice. So thank you, Sarah. All right, Alex, can you introduce yourself, please?
All right, everybody. I think I see some familiar faces out there, but Alex Nestor here. I 2012 from Naval Academy, majored in English and Russian, and then did the nuke life. So I was on USS Georgia, and then I got red detail to be a shift eng up in New York. But honestly, it was a great tour. Made just a bunch of friends, got a tremendous amount of experience, and ran a shift as a snot-nosed JO. So it was super fun. And ultimately, it probably is what got me the current job I'm in. So transitioned in January of 2019 into Amazon and their like military pathways thing. So I've been doing the operations thing for almost 3 years now. So if you've got any questions about like the big tech companies, or I could probably help answer some of those. If you've got questions about Amazon, because it's a behemoth, I know a lot of folks and I do a ton of interviewing for them, so I can certainly help in that regard. But also with that, I live in Indianapolis now, so trying to get as familiar as I can with the Midwest and the different different stuff out there. So I'm one of those kind of weird ones. I was location specific. I know that's kind of a lot of people kind of, I don't know, say, hey, don't try to be as flexible as you can, but that was a priority for me. So happy to talk about that experience as well. Michael kind of mentioned earlier, but I'm also a new dad. So 3 weeks ago, I had a kid, so I'm rocking that paternity life, and it's pretty rad. So great to meet everybody. Hopefully, I can help as much as I can. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you. He also, I believe, coined the term "fat attack" for the SSG, and I've never heard that phrase before, and I think it's pretty awesome. So
it's the Cadillac of the submarine force.
Fat attack. That's awesome. So thank you, Al. And Alex underplays how much help he has done for veterans at Amazon. He has literally helped hundreds, or maybe not hundreds, over 100 veterans at Amazon prepare for interviews and things like that. Like once COVID started, and has been acknowledged within Amazon for all the work he's done for veterans. So thank you, Alex. So my man Patrick, can you introduce yourself, sir?
Hi, everybody. Good evening. My name is Pat Kirilikis. I'm a mechanical engineering graduate from United States Naval Academy. I went to conventional Nukes, and at about 5 years, I had about enough. I was looking to get out, and I liked engineering enough. So I went back to get a master's degree in engineering on my own, and wanted to stay in Massachusetts. I worked for 2 startups that both went out of business, and then I had enough of that. And so I've been working for nonprofits since then, a nonprofit electric utility for a period of time. And then I worked for MIT in our little power plant, just a little heating plant in the Department of Facilities for a period of time. And then I just recently changed over. I'm in charge of utilities at Amherst College, which is a small little liberal arts school in Massachusetts, right where I grew up. And so I've stayed conventionally similar to the job that you were doing. So it was good enough for me. And I was able to do the same job that I was doing on the aircraft carrier near my hometown. So that's what I do now.
Patrick, how many megawatts was your generator there at MIT?
It was 40 megawatts. So MIT was similar to a big size college like University of Michigan and Texas and everything else. We had a lot of facilities, a lot of square footage, 13 million square footage under the Central Utility umbrella. And you could find that similarly at hospitals and big corporations, big factories, in big land grant university style. And then Amherst College, slightly different. It's about a megawatt. We have about 2 million square feet, which is, a scale down. But this job exists at every college in the country.
And you said Amherst is talking about maybe doing some geothermal conceivably?
Oh, yeah. So that actually is one of the attractions to coming to this job. Amherst College wants to go fossil free. And to do that is a lot of strategies. I previously worked in 2 renewable energy startups, didn't take off. But now I get to work on the other side and buy it and put it in. And so we want to put in geothermal wells, which may work for us here. And we're exploring that now. And, we have a goal for 2030 fossil free. And the way we worded that is specific. So it's part of it's an accounting piece. So.
Nice. No, I think it's really cool. And, yeah, thanks for being involved, Patrick. So, and Mary, could you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Hi, everyone. So my name is Mary Coyne. I'm a 2012 graduate of Notre Dame. I did ROTC there. I was a political science major. So join you, Alex, in that tier 3 position of power. So from Notre Dame, I went through the sub pipeline. I was out on the main, out here in Seattle for about 3.5 years. And then I did a shore duty in DC. I was an ROTC instructor. So back to my roots. So for Georgetown, GW, Howard, and Catholic. So I basically just wrangled cats and their hormones for about 2 years. After that, I work for GE Renewable Energies now. So I joined their junior officer leadership program, which is a rotational program, because I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was flirting around with everything from consulting to startups to tech to space. And then, if someone has a question on this, like my husband was in the military as well, and we were transitioning at the same time. So I can understand how challenging that is as two people who have no idea what they wanted to do to try and figure out like what you're going to do next. So we both ended up at GE. So right now, been there for about 2.5 years. I just recently joined their offshore wind team. So I'm part of the small team that is starting to build our offshore wind portfolio here in the US. So we're only about 8 months old. So there's lots to do. But if you have any questions about dual mill transition, not really knowing what you want to do, renewable energy, and the reserves, I can speak to all 4 of those. So happy to be here. Good to meet you guys.
Thanks, Mary. I was just about to type into all you guys. Please chat in any questions you have. I think we have a really nice spread of people here. We have space, we have renewable, we have engineering, we have different locations, whatever. I'm trying to think about, so this, for those of you who are logged in, this format is similar to what I do when I do meetups. I try to grab another nuke. It's not 6 or 7 of us, it's probably 2 or 3, and we just sit and have coffee or have beers or whatever and talk to you guys about transitioning. We normally focus on you. So something that I'll bring up now, I see a lot of people on, or at least not a lot of people, some people that are still on their worship. You know, I saw Henry M. Jackson and I think it was Georgia and whatever. I'll throw a question out to the panel here. When you were thinking about that like a lot of people are thinking about getting out either right from the boat or on shore duty, you know, you might not have put as much thought into your post-Navy career on shore duty. If you were choosing your shore duty now, like what are some things you would think about, locations or jobs that you would think would be good jobs that might set you up for, does anybody have any opinions on that? Or I could start talking to, and anybody can add in their 2 cents. Alex, you want to go ahead?
I think, you know, first, the fact that folks are coming here, like this is a great step, right? Because this is you taking like an intentional act of like, hey, I should probably start at least coming up with a plan for transitioning out, right? A couple of my buddies, like they literally had no plan. They got out, filed for unemployment or didn't, and just like sat on their couch, like, you know, did CrossFit, right? Like the important thing for me, I'd say my advice is like come up with some idea of a plan, right? Like for me, I was trying to decide if I should get out of the Navy off the boat or go to shore duty. My skipper let me rotate to shore duty early, and I missed a deployment. So even though I went up to be a shift eng, I missed a deployment. So I view that as a win, and it worked out really, really well, right? You can successfully transition off the boat as long as you have a plan and you've got like ways that you can actually network and figure out job opportunities and things like that. Typically that's easier in shore duty. But you know, just so long as you realistically look at, hey, this is how far out I'm getting out. This is what I can actually do to set myself up for success. You know, whether that's location specific, certifications, networking, you name it, right? But you know, that's kind of my 2 cents there. I don't know if anyone's got any other things to add.
No, those are good comments there, Alex. I always say think about location. You know, like if I was revisiting that decision, I was actually underway when my wife played the slate for me. So we we had to have a talk before I left, and we were looking for more metropolitan areas that would allow for her to have a better career opportunity. So we were looking at the San Diegos, the Seattles, and we ended up going to DC, and it ended up being a real nice fit for us. So that's something else. Maybe we're all the transition point is about like the 28, 30 year point of your life. If you get out of that at first commitment, which 75% of nukes or get out, after their first tour or short tour. So, when you talk about, people, that is a large part of the community. So, so maybe you think coast, maybe you think, because there will be so much more free time when you get off the boat on shore duties that you'll be able to look into these opportunities. So, we had
Mike, I think for me it was an ability to breathe. I was on a fast attack that was in a shipyard, and then we deployed, and I felt in that 3 years I never got a chance to just stop and think about what I wanted to do when I grew up.
Your job, like a power school instructor, is kind of a nice one to advertise on the way out too. You were using your brain, and you were doing something, for the good of the country too. So,
I saw the power school instructors when I was a student, and I was like, man, that seems like a pretty cush job. And then I got there and realized naval reactors never goes away. So I was kind of wrong, but my hours probably averaged 30 to 35 hours a week. So not that bad. Kevin was there before I was and had it much better. But that was a big one. I was looking for jobs where I could possibly breathe and figure out, do I want to stay in the Navy for another tour, do a department head tour, or do I want to get out? And location was kind of second to me.
And I kind of wanted to add on to that, Eric, because that's such a good point, because I think everyone feels that to a certain extent, is you're just wound so tight for those 3-ish years that you're attached to a boat or a ship that you barely have time to understand who you are anymore. Like my entire life, my personality, my friends, my spare time, my professional time was oriented around a submarine. And so I really needed that short time to understand like what was truly important to me and like what I wanted to do next. So that pause is huge. And so I think the first step is realizing, am I so desperate to get out? Have I had such a terrible experience? I need to just separate myself from the Navy. Now do it. Like if that's what you need to breathe, then you should do it. But if you're not sure, a short tour is a great opportunity to just reset your paradigm, because truly like what you're doing right now at sea is very hard. Like most shore tours, I'd say the vast majority of shore tours don't come near to that level of psychological demand. And so if you should do something that you think sounds fun, because you're never going to be paid that well to do a job that probably isn't quite as taxing as the paycheck would imply. Just saying.
I want to pile onto that too. Shore tour, and I sat on the fence for many years. And shore tour is a great time to get some additional degrees. I got a couple master's degrees out of shore tour. I got a graphic design certificate. You can get your PMP, and that ties into the question. Should you do PAE or PMP? Like you have time to do all kinds of things on shore duty for education that for brains like ours, it's very easy to knock out in your spare time or at work, because it's short tour and it's pretty low, what's the word? Op tempo.
Sarah, aren't you a PE as well?
I did my PNEO, but I didn't do PE.
Okay.
That's different, right? That's the professional engineer cert.
Yeah.
So PE, do it now while your brain is fresh. The longer you're out and in the business world, the more it's all going to atrophy, and then do PMP later. Do PE first.
Gotcha. Mr. Kevin joined us. He had a important business call here. So Kevin, can you introduce yourself real quick there, bud?
Hey guys, I'm Kevin Ryan. So I was on the Montpelier a long time ago now. I was the CRA in Comma there. Then I went to a FitRun for about 2 years in Norfolk, both of those in Norfolk, and then was a power school instructor in Charleston, like Eric mentioned. Got out from there, went directly to Google, specifically Google Fiber in Raleigh for 5 years. Then beginning of last year, I transitioned to a company called Iconics, who focuses on data center commissioning. I'm kind of doing a life cycle replacement program, which is a little bit of a different business line for them. But I've been doing that for almost a year now. Really enjoyed it. Had a little bit of a different experience going from a super big company to a relatively small company. So happy to talk about that and making a change or jumping into the tech world. Also data centers. That's where I do all my work. Was just up at a couple in Northern Virginia last week. So if you'd like to know a little bit more about those, happy to discuss.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. That's a good point. Data centers, anything remotely linked to a data center, a nuke would be a good fit for running them, fixing them. Kevin's commissioning them, all of the parts that go into them. There are nuke starting companies just around data centers, financing them, leasing them, buying the land and developing them for data center. Like you name it, anything data centers, nukes are finding their way. Like Facebook's head of data centers, former Navy nuke. The head of the data center in Charleston used to be on our board, former Navy nuke. So like, yeah. So guys, if you're interested in anything data centers, Kevin can talk to you about that. Or it's a really good way to find a job near a location you might be interested in. See if they have any data centers there. So, we've had some questions come in there. Are the reserves worth it? Okay, we have a couple reservists here. So how about who wants to lead off there? Kev or Eric, you want to talk reserves?
Sure. So I've been in the reserves for 3.5 years now. I'm in a submarine undersea warfare unit. So we support CTF-34 out in Hawaii as our combatant commander. So what my kind of new normal consists of is 1 week in a month, I'll show up at Space Force Base Buckley. It's about 30 minutes west or east of Denver. Get there around 7:30 or 8. We'll muster, sit around for a while, drink some coffee, do some paperwork, maybe some secret training if we can get access to the secret space. If not, we go to lunch. It's actually pretty chill. And we do the same thing so it's usually 8 to 4 on Saturday and 8 to 4 on Sunday. I mean, that's our unit. I can't speak to how other ones are, but for the most part, going from active duty to the reserves, you walk in the door and you're like, how the hell does this place function? How do you guys get anything done? Especially being a nuke, right? There's no processes, nobody knows anything. And for your first year, you're utterly confused on how this system works. But then you start drinking the Kool-Aid and you're like, yeah, I can get used to this. And I say that in jest, right? But I've been doing it for 3.5 years now. My ATs are out in Hawaii, so I have to do 2 weeks a year supporting the reserves. I go and sit in ComSub PAC and support the watch floor because there's not enough active duty people to manage themselves. And the reason I really did it in the first place was the healthcare. Civilian healthcare is way different than what you saw in the military. If you're single, you never saw a bill, right? TRICARE covered you. If you have a spouse, maybe you saw a bill if you're on TRICARE standard. If you're a TRICARE Prime, all you ever did was go to your spouse and your children went to the military base. The civilian world, my job, my premiums, if I were to do it through them, would be at least $800 twice a month, plus the out-of-pocket max is much, much higher, right? And maybe my healthcare through my company is not standard, but going through the reserves, my max cost is about $3,000. My wife had a kid about a year ago, we paid $62 total on TRICARE. So healthcare was a big driver for me to stay in the reserves. I stayed in longer, it transitioned to I like the people. It's something you can never really give up. It's that it's a little bit different in the civilian world. You never have that same level of camaraderie that you did in that same level of suck on the boat, or even the good times on the boat. I also like being connected, right? I like it. I did 7 years in the Navy or as on active duty, and it was really part of me, and I haven't been able to give that up. So that's what I liked about the reserves, or why I'm still doing the reserves.
One thing I'll bring up is that we all think of submarine reserve jobs or nuke reserve jobs, or there are tons of other reserve units, reserve jobs that I mean, most people get as an 03 that are just 03 jobs. I was at a space command for my shore duty. I could have stayed and hooked up with a space reserve unit. Sarah, you might be able to speak more to it, but I know there's at least one in DC. There's one up in Monterey. At least when I was leaving, there's probably one in San Diego that have stuff to do with Navy Space Commands. There's probably other little niches of the Navy that, I mean, everyone's leaving with a TSSCI clearance, so the clearance isn't the problem. You have the technical background. Okay, you might not know some of the stuff, but they'll take probably a garden variety nuke for a lieutenant billet, vice just a random, JO if it makes sense. So there's ways when people that have a little more experience in the reserves that can explain to you where all these units are and how you can apply for the different jobs and whatever, it does help. Now, what do you know the best, submarines or nuke stuff? So you might have to stick in there. So I can't answer all those questions, but I know there are other units out there that are a little more. Mary, you gonna go ahead there?
Yeah, so just generally speaking, for any of you who are on this call right now, if you're uncertain about whether or not the reserves are right for you, please reach out to Eric and I. There's a lot of nuance to it that we could take up this whole call talking about, right? But the key thing to take away is, along with the healthcare piece, it is significantly easier to just transition to the reserves, try it and leave, than the opposite. Like the gap, like if you just get straight out of the Navy, like drop the reserves, don't even try, and you find out, oh shit, like I wish I had done that. Healthcare is obscenely expensive because it is, and like I don't know what I want to do, yada yada. It is such a pain in the ass to try and get back in. So just think of it this way. If you transition to the reserves, don't sign the bonus, which is like, I promise to do this for 3 years, and you give me like $8,000. If you don't do that, you can just walk away. Especially if you aren't making up time based on what scholarship you had. You can just leave. It's great. I think about that sometimes on like rough reserve weeks when I just have a lot of admin bullshit I don't want to deal with because I have a real job, but it is worth it. There are definitely some pains. We can talk more about it later, but just think of it. It's a lot easier to just transition in than the opposite.
Sarah, you're unmuted. Or
Oh, I'm sorry. I was typing an answer away. I was going to say something, but I forgot.
No, there was a question about what should you do in shore duty? I mean, that's like one of the most frequently asked question. It kind of depends on your life situation.
Have fun.
Yeah.
Enjoy it.
Yeah. No. I mean, it's true. I mean, but you have so much free time. You can have fun and get your PMP, get your, there's all kinds of like when I was getting out, the free easy one was the Old Dominion Masters in Engineering Management. Now there's a Duke one. Now there's a John Hopkins one. I see so many distance learning type graduate degrees that people do learn. There's someone on the call here is learning to code and do data science on shore duty. And that's awesome.
Can I do a quick plug though, Michael? Don't slack off during your shore duty though. Right? It seems like a silly point, but like I truly have interviewed transitioning military officers where their only stories, like their only experiences or like their work experience that they can talk about was before, like 2 years prior, right? Like this is a great opportunity with a lot of flexibility, but it also is a great opportunity for you to like find, in your current roles, like find ways to set yourself apart and be able to speak to those experiences, right? Like, and I don't know. I just want to put that as a disclaimer.
No,
But
no,
by and large, right, like nuke officers are very competent, and when you go into shore duties, it's you end up doing quite well regardless. So
no,
just wanted to throw it out there.
no, that's a great point. I mean, and just kind of just an example here. The people you guys are seeing panelists here, they would be considered hiring managers. They would be the people that that eventually would bottom line people getting hired, and hence they would do interviews, whatever. Oftentimes you're talking to recruiters, but like so but when you hear hiring managers, so Alex, you're probably hiring manager for stuff. Eric probably been, Kevin's probably been, Mary's and Sarah. So they can sniff out people that are kind of lazy. And so what Alex said there really is a great point. So
Yeah, do you want me to, so like a little bit of background on that, right? So tomorrow at the conference, and like by and large, there'll be 3 different groups of folks from different companies, right? There will be recruiters, which, say what you will, there's going to be different tiers of recruiters and stuff, but at the end of the day, they want to put a warm body in a position, right? So there's going to be recruiters. They just want to fill the roles. There will probably be some hiring managers, which those are the people that they're hiring people for their teams, right? They have a vested interest in the candidates that you're screening and interviewing and want to fill the right or the best candidate for a role. And then you'll probably have a third group, which, that's just like a person with military experience who wants to go to a conference, right? Those are really great contacts. That's how kind of all of us typically, were at some point, right? Those are the people that can give you the best insight as to, hey, what is the job actually like? What skills are required? Is it fun, right? What is the background? What are the things that I need to know? And how can I set myself up for success, right? Those questions aren't as good from, when you ask that of recruiters, because they won't have as much of the details, right? So I just wanted to kind of, a lot of people have those kind of questions, hey, who is the person that I'm talking to? Think of it kind of with those 3 buckets. Are they a recruiter? Are they a hiring manager? Or are they just an at-large member of the company who has some military experience? Those typically are going to be your best networking people to give you the really good info.
great point, Alex. So and tomorrow, I just know who's going to be. So we have a live event tomorrow, which will be, probably half of the companies, because some of the half still can't travel because of COVID. You will have mostly nukes. You will have some recruiters. On the calls on Wednesday, the actual career fair where everybody will have a breakout table, you will have everybody will probably send a recruiter, but then you'll definitely have lots of hiring managers, ex-veterans. But like, I don't want to like toot the horn of the conference, but like, you don't understand the high level of some of these people that are giving up hours of their time to come back and give back. Like the Boston Consulting Group guys that are each doing an hour, there's like 6 of them. Some of them are like principals and partners at Boston Consulting Group divisions. You got Sean Finley, who's like putting stuff in space for, well, wait, no, excuse me, he's a TerraPower now, but he was putting stuff up in space. Mike Stevens from Blue. I mean, like, so these people are really coming back to help you guys. So you should feel kind of honored that they're doing that. So, but all right, some other questions here. Any of the other questions anybody wants to jump on? Sarah, did you see that one about private practice versus government and military contracting? Did you?
I did. Yeah, I actually answered that. And I'm happy to talk more about it. Can everybody see everything I've typed? Because I didn't respond privately. So I'll just quickly,
Yeah,
quickly do it. Okay. So I'm biased, right? Because I'm in a small startup military contracting and I angsted over this. Like, oh my gosh, if I stay in the DoD industry, you know, I'm a failure because I didn't go out and like achieve things and go private industry. And I'm just staying in my comfort zone. And if I stay in my comfort zone, I'm failing. And oh my gosh, just like the angst. And what I found is it is very different. There, you have enough change getting out and learning to be a civilian that there's nothing wrong with staying in the comfort zone of your knowledge, right, first. And so that's why I mean, I got my job through networking, so and my network is Navy, and so by virtue of that, like I ended up in Navy, not necessarily intentionally. And so I think first, if I had wanted to go private industry, I really would have had to have been working that network. And I'm maybe more social, but I mean, I'm still a nuke at the end of the day. So like, you know, once a nuke, always a nuke. You know, and it exhausts me to go out and network and I feel slimy. And like, I had all these perceptions of private industry. And you also want to like the people you work with. And I liked the people who recruited me, and it was a small company and they value me. And in a small company, you wear many hats, which is fun for a nuke because you're used to doing that. It gives you freedom, and we're driven. So I'm answering kind of a bunch of different questions here. But so if you go contractor, you have this money that you're kind of used to money because you have your nuke bonus. But it's been a while since I had a nuke bonus. And so you have money, you have annual bonuses based on performance, you have like recruiting bonuses, you have all this fun, you have this freedom. I have to sign some papers saying, for example, and I don't want to get anybody like worked up, but like I have to sign some papers saying that I was vaccinated, whereas the people, my counterparts on the government side, have to like prove it, right? So just if you stay government, there's still a lot of control over you. And if you're really craving freedom, then go contractor. It's that like government contractor, right? Because it's this mix of freedom and yet you're still good and it's still your comfort zone and you still have your network to draw on. From there, if you're finding you still want to get the stink of the DoD off you, use your network connections and your newly gained business experience to move forward into going into private industry.
No, that's a great answer, Sarah, and it brings up a lot of points. I mean, and the other thing that I think, you know, you kind of talked about but didn't talk about was that like if you have a clearance when you get out, that is super valuable.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to say when I accidentally unmuted and started typing. You were talking about clearances. Clearances are huge, right? I ended up in the space industry. And so coming from the nuke, I already had the SCI eligible. So, and I needed that for my satellite stuff. And then getting out, I needed it to continue supporting the Navy doing C4I space stuff. The clearance is huge. And as a recruiter for my company, you know, we need people with clearances already in place. We don't want to mess around with people getting clearances. And so it's one of the points of the reserves, for example, is, or a company who needs you to have a clearance, like somebody needs to hold your clearance is what it's called. And I don't know how familiar you are with that, but like somebody has to sponsor you and say this person needs a clearance, and that somebody has to have a valid reason, and that is either a contract with the government or they are the government. And so I would like one of my other big pieces of advice is do whatever you can to hang on to that clearance until you're sure you're ready to walk away from it. And that's like a reason why I'm not ready to go private industry yet either, because I like doing stuff with the clearance. I like being behind that curtain and knowing the secrets, especially like in the space world. It's fun. And so, yeah, focus on finding someone who's going to keep your clearance active for you. That's another benefit to being either a Govy or a military contractor.
No,
I'm
good.
a huge proponent of private business, as I work with a lot of them. Why I think nukes can thrive in private industry, from firsthand experience watching people, they just random people, non-nukes or non-military people, they will deliberately see what they can get away with and drop. Whereas I know giving a task to a former military person, they're going to get it done. So there is an incredible amount of room, if you find the right place, don't get me wrong, for you to succeed and promote much faster than you would in or you see from other people, because you don't let things drop. You are accountable. People can trust you to get things to come up with a new solution, to go problem solve something. I can't tell you how many times I get frustrated working with even executives who have great credentials, heads of sales, chief financial officers, et cetera, who can't manage a project to save their lives. I mean, you would think after 20 years of being in business, they can put together the fundamentals of problem solving and figuring out how to drive down the root causes. But that skill doesn't exist as much as you otherwise think it would, even for people that get paid immense amounts of money. So I think if you find your right niche, and if it's something you really enjoy, there's an incredible amount of room for you to succeed. And that's why I'm a huge fan of private industry.
Thank you, Eric. There's a couple questions on the headhunters. I'll give my 2 cents just because here's the easiest answer. I think most of the companies here that everyone is represented by don't use headhunters. I don't think Partners Group uses headhunters. Amazon doesn't need it. They have everybody applying for them. GE Wind, no way. They use headhunters. Everybody wants a job with them, you know. Some of the small stuff, Sarah's company is probably too small to feel like they could spend 30 grand on a headhunter.
Yeah,
you know?
we don't want a headhunter. We
Yeah.
do it ourselves.
So you have limited yourself to like maybe 10% of all the jobs that are out there by using a headhunter. And then the other question is, all of my friends are the hiring managers, the vice presidents, senior vice presidents at companies now. None of them want to use a headhunter because they don't want to give that money away. They would much rather give you that in salary, you know, or in moving bonus or whatever. So if you can all but help it, I think the reason that, like, because no other place on earth uses headhunters as much as Navy Nukes do. And I think the reason is because about 20 years ago, Lee Cohen cut a deal with Millington and said, hey, can you come and tell these nukes to go to shore duty, and we will let you kind of have their unclassed email addresses. I think that was the deal. Because, like, when Lee
Is that
Cohen,
illegal?
but it's what he does, you know. Like, I've been to 2 of those briefs. He gets up and says, everybody should go to shore duty because you're so busy, you haven't had a chance to, like, think about your career. And then after shore duty, if you need help getting a job, I will help you get a job. And then the other thing he always says to a letter is that you get paid more staying in the Navy than you do when you leave the Navy. And he says that all the time too, which is also baloney, because of the fact, I mean, it depends on where you go. Like, there's people that go to work at hedge funds after they're you know, and they, you know, make an extra, you know, 70 grand on what they're making in the Navy. So, like, I don't know. I think that's the whole reason that all these people get the insight. But Patrick, go ahead. You have a point there.
Yeah, I've worked with 2 of them. And it was a bit of a transaction, but, you know, I was comfortable. I knew what they had to do. I knew what their job is, and I knew what I wanted. And I wanted them to put me in front of a couple companies and me take it from there. And then I was able to understand that they were going to try to push me into that job. So I knew that going in. And so I knew that I was the commodity. But, you know, we did it as a transaction. I said, this is what I want. These are the companies I want to talk to. And they said, okay, we're going to put you in front of those companies. And then, which we did. But then afterward, they're like, you know, that's a really good job. You should really take that. And I knew enough then to go, like, I'll make my decision. So I use them and they use me, and we were okay for it. But
Two consenting adults.
the biggest ones I didn't really care for. The biggest one I didn't really care for, but there was one group that I liked. I won't mention them because I don't want to mix it up there, but the recruiter was a Navy guy. He was a classmate of mine, and so I felt comfortable there that he wasn't going to try to railroad me there. So that worked out for me. I talked to a few companies. I interviewed with them. We went to one step, and then I walked away and did my own stuff. But I don't have nothing bad to say. I'm comfortable with it. I would use it again if I was interested again and wanted to talk to certain companies.
A lot of us left pre-LinkedIn really being a thing, you know. Now, like, if you had an interest in that company, Patrick, you would just find a nuke or a Navy veteran at that company and say, like, hey,
Oh, sure.
yeah.
Yep, but it's hard to, that person, it's hard to get in front of that guy. Even for me, you can email the guy. I don't even LinkedIn anymore. So if there's somebody that their job, that job and that recruiting manager know what he wants, and he's got a budget to pay somebody to go find that person, that's the other way to look at it. If they want to pay Michael Cohen $30,000 to go find this type of person that's ready to start on this day and ready to come there and help with the sales piece, they're an active employer and they want to hire good people there. So that's the other way to think about it.
Sure.
Something recently happened. I mean, Lee Cohen was at Lucas Group for a long time, and he just went and did his own thing. I know people who've gotten jobs through him, and they're happy, and they got good money out of it. So if you are gonna, not to promote Lee, but I would say if you are gonna go to one, try him. I think he's also pretty low pressure, based on the guys I know have used him. If you go through the interview process and you don't end up, you get an offer and it's not what you want, there's no problem walking away. Whereas I think some of the other headhunters are going to put a lot of pressure on you to take that job.
No, that's a good point. And Lee was a Navy nuke, so that was something else he has going for him. So
one word of caution, and I don't want to talk poorly of any headhunters out there, but everybody I know who's gone through like the exclusive headhunters, so anybody who says you can't work with anybody else, I shouldn't say everybody. There was a Marine officer who I think it was kind of an upsell for him with them, but the nukes I know who have done that have regretted it and have not stayed at those first jobs that they were placed in long. So I think everybody's kind of talked about the folks who it's okay to say no to and explore other opportunities, like use them. I think Patrick made some great points. I always say it's kind of like a realtor, where if you keep telling them no to all the stuff you don't like enough, sure enough, they're going to look a little harder and find something to kind of meet your needs better. Tell them no a couple times. But I would not recommend anyone who says you can't work with anyone else. They're not offering anything you can't find on your own.
No, and I mean, I think that any Navy nuke is so valuable to everybody that, like, I don't think you really need a headhunter. Like, I don't know, just, yeah, I mean, there's a couple jobs.
Good barometer,
Mike, it's the lazy approach. If you don't want to go on LinkedIn and do the hard work of talking to people, a headhunter is a good way to get out of that.
Also, it's good experience, right?
Yeah.
Like, you don't want your first interview with a company to be your dream job. So like, this is a really, like, if it's something that you're not sure about, just give it a try. Like, you're not going to lose money because of it.
Yeah.
It's good experience.
Yeah.
Hey, Michael, do you mind if I kind of want to take what Eric said and kind of answer a live question that Eric Bermudez had?
You guys, I'm talking too much.
No, you're good, right? Because kind of to Eric's point, right? The headhunter will help with introductions, but we now live in the LinkedIn world, So one, right? We've got this conference where it's kind of like a smaller LinkedIn world where it's nuke centric, and we kind of already have a lot of that. Like, essentially think of it like a filter. It's kind of already passed through, right? But Eric has a good question where say, hey, there's these specific jobs where the company is like, how the heck do you actually know what the heck this means, right? Because a lot of it is, the Navy has tons of acronyms. Corporate has a bunch of buzzwords, right? Like, oh, you're a project excellence manager to progress strategic initiatives. Like, what the hell does that mean, right? My best recommendation: go to that company, go to the people, find someone in there that is U.S. Navy, because by and large, there's gonna be at least one person. Send them a message. Just say, hey, I'm transitioning out. I just want to talk to someone from the company to hear what it's like, right? When I was getting out, I had 100% success. People would set up time and talk. Literally anyone that hits me up on LinkedIn, I make time to talk to them, to let them know what Amazon is like and what these different companies are like, right? Veterans are a very, very strong network that look out for their own. So please use LinkedIn to figure out more of what these jobs are, what the heck this stuff actually means, right? So great question, Eric. If that doesn't answer, please, respond back in there.
And on the point of veterans paying it forward, for a long time, I was really hesitant to align myself with a veteran label. I just, as a JO, I don't feel like I really earned it. And it's just a little hesitant because it seemed like a pretty intense community based on what I'd seen, which wasn't accurate. They've been incredibly supportive, like complete strangers give me the time of day and give me their honest feedback on what they think I should do based on the conversations we have. And I really try in my job, GE doesn't pay me any extra money to do this, but a couple hours every week, I'm talking with different vets just to, lend an ear, because more often than not, people just need to talk about it with a neutral party and make sure that their train of thought makes sense. And that's okay. So I really encourage you guys, to Alex's point, don't hesitate to do that as much as you can.
There's also other ways to network. There's if you are the 1/3 of Nukes that are Naval Academy grads, use those alumni groups. There's functions. Go watch an Army Navy game somewhere. If you are in a metropolitan area that has a bunker laboratory, I think there's like 50 of them throughout the United States. Those are veteran startup incubators that always have neat people. If you're in the startup community, you're not boring, And so most cities, in pre-COVID, they'd have fun little, meet on the first Tuesday night of the month. We're going to go check out this startup and then have beers afterwards. Most mid-major size cities and all the major cities have bunker laboratories. There's all kinds of different fun networking ways, especially if you were interested in a certain location. That's like some of the stuff that you're talking about doing on shore duty. It's not just certifications, it's networking. And Mary, for a while, weren't you having like coffee with just random veterans around DC? You were scheduling coffee dates with.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, stuff like that is genius to do. And because Alex is right.
Small talk is agony, but once you get through that, it's actually really helpful. I'm so bad at small talk.
Yeah, no, like everyone always wants to pay it back. So, okay. Anybody have any questions that they want to answer live here while I'm talking about it?
One thing about LinkedIn, I think we kind of touch around the subject. If you know you're getting out or a resignation letter dropped or whatever it is, do not be afraid to put in your LinkedIn title, transitioning nuclear submarine officer or transitioning nuclear surface warfare officer, right? That tag helps you pop into search bars for people that are looking for you. And I know this from firsthand experience because that's how I got my job. My current boss was a enlisted nuke in the early thousands. He was an electrician, EM2, and he knew when he got to the position he was at my company, he wanted to bring on former submarine officers. So he typed in transitioning nuclear submarine officer and popped up 20 people and sent off 20 LinkedIn messages, and I was the only one dumb enough to respond. I also went through the interview process and impressed them and got through that, right, and got the job. But that was the initial interaction, a cold LinkedIn message that hit my inbox, and I sent a resume off after that. So you never know, and it can't hurt, right, to go do that and look at the LinkedIn messages that come in.
So, Mike, I think we have a couple of questions in here. One category being like thoughts on graduation, like degrees, certifications, PMPs, et cetera, and kind of ties nicely into like how did you guys use your shore tour? So I think a lot of us here used our time away from the submarine or the surface ship to get additional education. Whatever education that you think will help you in your trajectory is what you should get, not what other people tell you to get. I personally got a graduate degree in international trade policy because I thought it was cool at Georgetown while I was there. Have I used it in offshore? Not yet. it's possible. It's possible I'll use it. Who knows? But when it comes to certifications, I think it really ends up coming down to what company that you're actually very seriously interviewing for. I'll tell you right now, the company I work at will take experience over a certification any day of the week. So if I was looking at 2 candidates to be running operations for an offshore wind site, the person who has either run an onshore wind site or any other large, technically challenging organization with people under him or her will always take precedent, even if they don't have a graduate degree or a college degree. I don't give a shit. Than someone who has all these fancy degrees but no experience. That's just the way it works in my particular industry. It may be different elsewhere, but just keep that in the back of your mind that, you know, sometimes as you go through whatever education you choose, you find the place that you want to go, those different certifications and experience way differently depending on the industry. So interested to hear everyone else's thoughts on that.
Now, how about a real quick rapid fire? What did you do on shore duty? Like, if you got any certifications on shore duty, tell me what you did, and I'll go first. Well, actually, I was on a boomer, not a fat attack, actual just a boomer, and I had so much free time on my boomer that I actually got my ODU masters on the boat still. And then on shore duty, I got my Lean Six Sigma green belt. So, all right, but round robin, anybody else get anything on shore duty?
I worked through like the ODU, but I'd never discussed it in the interview process. I just talked about being a shift eng.
I already discussed mine, but if I could do it all over again, or if I were doing it now, I would be looking at some sort of MBSE certification.
I did the coursework for the PMP and got really bored. I thought it added no value to me. Just kind of leave that where it was. I wish, looking back, I had done the Green Six Sigma black or the green belt. Having some level of knowing the jargon and lean and the techniques, I think is pretty valuable in industry, especially if you're going to go into some sort of engineering or not financial services, like engineering consulting or even management consulting. I would call myself a lean novice. Probably as compared to Alex and Mary. I don't know if you guys use it on a daily basis, but I think it's pretty useful.
I did the MEM on shore duty and was pretty. I had at least a few interviews. I've been at least a few interviews where folks have been like sort of impressed. They're like, wow, you were working full time and you did this master's degree. So that's one way to kind of sell that, even though we all kind of know it's not that bad. And one thing with the PMP on top of that, I didn't do the PMP certification until after I got out of the Navy. But you can use the project management course there as part of the MEM curriculum as you're training for the PMP. So you get your hours for that and everything. From that, you can really just grab, I forget the author of the book, but there's like a PMP for Dummies book out there, and it's a pretty easy read to cram for a test.
I know Lauren normally mentions it during these things. Lauren's our other board member who couldn't be with us tonight, but she knows that she got paid more in her first job out of the Navy because of the Old Dominion MEM, because her company just has a flat thing that you get paid, you know, a different scale if you have any masters. So even though it wasn't a hard master's, whatever, it was technically a master's. So she did say that I can say to a letter that I got paid more because of having the MEM.
Can I offer a controversial opinion? If I could do it again, I wouldn't have gotten a graduate degree.
What would you have done instead?
Just probably volunteered more, like spent my time on shore duty developing the parts of myself that I ignored for so long in submarines, because I probably still could have been equally as competitive for the jobs that I applied for had I not had that degree. I wish I had waited to truly understand what I wanted to get involved in and invest my time in before spending that money and time. That's just, but hey, if you have any questions on international trade, hit me up.
There's a nuke that he's a good resource. He's too busy to ever participate in these, but he works at a hedge fund called 2 Sigma in Brooklyn, and he might be involved in the future. But he did courses through a place called General Assembly. Got some data analytics stuff. And if you're looking for at least ideas of what to get, that General Assembly is a good short course, high-end short course, data, Python, things like that. They're pretty expensive, but they're also supposedly really, really good. But at least it'll give you an idea of some other things that you might want to consider instead of a PMP or a whatever. So I did really like the Lean Six Sigma because I'm just an efficiency engineering dork. So
Michael, I want to jump on that too. Like,
that dork or that Lean Six Sigma or
no, the like what Mary said. And then what you said, maybe while you're figuring it out, take some courses in a bunch of things like Coursera, Udemy, any of those, right? I'm at the point now in my career where I would love to go back to school and get some sort of certificate or degree in AI and ML, right? But I can't. I don't have time. I'm old, all that stuff. But I'll tell you, as if I'm interviewing someone for a job and they tell me, well, my degree is in whatever international Mary stuff, but that wasn't for me. And so I did this series on LinkedIn or Coursera or like blah, 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 whatever. If you tell me that you were interested in it and you went and studied it in your own time, I believe you. And I want you on my team because you're driven and you're curious and all of these good things. Like, I don't need to go, okay, prove it. Even you can audit those courses without paying for them sometimes. I don't need you to prove it. I believe you when you tell me that you did this. And that speaks volumes about you as a person.
excellent point.
I kind of want to echo that as well. Like a month ago, I interviewed a guy, and he just sort of at the end, we were just talking, and he wanted to bring up how in his off time he's been curious about Python, and he's taught himself Python, and he's gone through coursework, and he's tinkering in the background on it, and he's gotten like 2 certifications through MIT through like their open stuff. Like, boom, that did it. Like, that set him apart because he's pursuing something, and he wanted to, like, to me, that probably would have been more beneficial for me transitioning out is doing something like that.
No, I've been a guest on, I think, 4 or 5 podcasts because of doing, veteran, help and all of them bring up the one thing I do on the side, which I write. I'm a baseball media member, and they always bring it up because they find it interesting, and I just do it because I like baseball and writing. It's good to practice your writing, especially if you, in this day and age, we don't really write anymore. We just text and short email responses or whatever. So, but you'd be surprised, those little things in interviews that get brought up all the time, like what Alex was just saying and what Sarah was just saying. Yeah, don't overboard on your resume and your mentioning, but if it comes naturally and it just comes out and like, oh, okay, tell me more about that. So,
Mike, one I want to talk about is the MBA. Kind of hovered around it. So before I stumbled in my job via LinkedIn, I was actually seriously going down the MBA path. I had taken GMATs. I was going to start writing essays. I was going to apply to Harvard, Wharton, and a bunch of the other M7 schools to try to go do that, to go be a consultant or a banker or who knows what, right? It can be a major career accelerant. And Kevin put this in the chat, right? It's a mix. There's some people who got MBAs and they did amazing things. And there's, like me, I never got an MBA and I feel like I'm doing pretty good. But if you want kind of that, I'm not going to call it a guarantee, but definitely that shining star on your resume, go get a top 10 MBA, right? It's those names you know. I would highly recommend against anything that's outside of the top 20. And you can look it up. There's tons and tons of those websites that do the rankings, but the top 10 are the names you know. And when I say that, there's a couple of big benefits, because a lot of people I work with have MBA. The network you can get by going to Harvard or Stanford or University of Chicago or Booth or any of those schools is immense, because that allows you to send an email to whoever it is in whatever industry at any time, and it's much higher response rate. And people within those networks talk, right? It's a huge benefit that, as compared to my colleagues, I don't have. I have my Navy network. Two, it gives you time to figure it out, right? So if you didn't take the time on shore tour, or you are getting out straight from the ship or the boat, then you get time to go and figure out what career you want to go into, whether that is consulting or banking or you name it, or government, or even back to the Navy, possibly. There's huge social benefits to it, right? Especially as we're coming out of COVID. MBAs have some great programs you can join to go travel across the world or be part of clubs or whatever it is. There's the learning. Don't get me wrong, right? One of my big drivers for when I wanted to go do an MBA possibly was to learn finance. I knew the world ran through finance, and you're going to run into it at some point. So I wanted to learn it in that 2 years. And then last, I think it can teach you how to go through these networking things you wouldn't otherwise go do, right? I had to, let's call it, bootstrap it on my networking adventure. I didn't know any better, and I'm getting better at it. But I think you learn from your peers in an MBA program how to do that faster than you would in the Navy, because no one in the Navy ever taught you how to network.
Hey, Eric, question for you. What are your thoughts on getting instead of going MBA right away, doing other things, and then later in your career getting the executive MBA?
To the same point, I think if you want to go do that, do it for the right reasons of trying to get that network. I think that's a huge benefit. Or maybe you are trying to satisfy that learning hurdle you never got to.
Hey, no, I'm going to be super quick answer. Like for me right now, I'm actively considering doing that. My wife and I are now in Indianapolis, and I've got a great Navy network. I've got a great Amazon network. But for me to continue to, succeed professionally in Indianapolis, it very much will help me if I would get like a Kelly School of Business MBA, right? So I'm right now I'm actively considering that, but will most likely do it like executive, because then I can continue to make my current salary and my current benefits, and it like the ROI just is an absolute killer. It would make perfect sense. It would be stupid for me to stop working for 2 years.
There are a couple of EMBAs that are kind of more well regarded. I believe Wharton has a pretty nice one. They have a West Coast one in San Francisco, so that one makes sense for a Seattle or San Francisco based person. Alex, I think you should totally consider Kellogg or Booth if you're gonna stay living in Indianapolis for that one. Obviously Harvard is good at everything, and just when you're applying to anything, any type of graduate education, consider only the best. To echo what Eric said, if you're interested in engineering, master's or PhD, Stanford, MIT, Georgia Tech, like the big names, like you have achieved this level already. Don't kind of settle for anything less than that. Also, we will have a Stanford PhD engineering PhD at the Mixer tomorrow night, and he'll be logging in. He's a former Nuke. You guys, have you met John Elsterda? I think a couple of you have met John. And I think he just defended, so he's Dr. John now, so which is awesome. And he's robotics and autonomous cars, and Google's Waymo has just made him a big offer, so he's going to go work for them. So that's kind of cool. But one other thing with the graduate education, let me just throw my GI Bill. If you guys are going to get your graduate education after your shore duty and you have GI Bill, make sure you know about the yellow ribbon. We won't go into it here because But yellow ribbon's kind of when you cover the difference. And the one I always want to mention, Wharton has a joint MBA JD. It's $125,000 a year for 3 years. That's 100% covered by the yellow ribbon. So if by chance you are looking for one of those rock star MBAs and you have any interest in law, in 3 years you can get MBA JD. And if you have the yellow ribbon, if you're one of those new pucks, or you have an extra long shore duty like the shift engines have or whatever, and have yellow ribbon, that's a pretty screaming good deal out there. So sorry to interrupt you, Eric.
Yeah, the other thing I want to have is if you do want to get into finance, and when I say that, it's investment banking or similar private equity, usually the most standard path is through an MBA program. And Chris Whitley's not here. He can speak to it better than I can. But getting that MBA from a top tier school has you a better chance of getting into one of those big investment banks. And for people that are looking for money and burning your lives on like a submarine hours, investment banking is the way to go, right? Even if you only do it for 2-3 years, right, you can clear $200,000 to $300,000 a year right out of your MBA program. You're going to work like a dog, don't get me wrong, but it's a path to quickly get up the escalator in terms of compensation.
Yeah, and Chris actually got his MBA while he was on shore duty. He was, I think he was ROTC at the University of Memphis, and he just got the MBA there because he was stationed there. But he was still able to get into Bank of America Merrill Lynch's investment banking program, and has done very well for himself. Whereas Dan went to Wharton and is doing investment banking, did investment banking after that. So, Sarah, you about to say something, or somebody was about to say something there that I cut them off? I don't know. So, other questions here. Somebody asked questions on the conference. The conference, and it's on Wednesday, in person tomorrow, conference on Wednesday, 1300 to 2000 PST. Each company will have their breakout room. So this is a Zoom webinar. We're all in the Brady Bunch window, but in a Zoom meeting, you will all have your own window, and you will bounce around. There will be a standard like kind of window everybody comes into, and then you have to at least initially request to be placed into like a company's room, but then you'll be made a co-host and you can bounce around to all the different rooms. And please bounce around to all the different rooms, because all of these veterans are giving their time. So, and remember, you're not just gathering information for yourself, you're gathering it for your friends who are underwater or out to sea. And some of the board members will swing by on Wednesday and maybe say hello. You could have like very standard interview type questions in those breakout rooms. You could just ask questions. It's kind of all up to the tone of what you're in the mood for. Go ahead, Mary.
So just something to add on the whole interview piece. I don't know how many of you on this call have a lot of interview experience. When I first started going to these events with Mike, I had none. So I had no idea what I was doing when I was talking to some of these companies. I really encourage you, like there's a way to be authentic and be yourself, but still be professional, right? Like everyone who's at these conferences has been to many of them, like as on the company side, right? Like they talk to a lot of people, and the people that stand out are those that are truly comfortable in their own skin and can still like have an earnest conversation, an honest conversation with someone, and yet still be a stalwart representative of the branch that they serve in and the professional that they are. And it's an art form, right? It takes practice. Was I able to do that when I first started off? God, no. My first interview ever was with Booz Allen Hamilton. Sorry, guys. That was just a horrible interview. But you have those talks with vets that, strangers, it's practice. You have coffee with like connections, practice. You go to things like this, it's practice. But when it's game time, having the ability to just earnestly talk to someone and be your authentic self, it's hard to do. So don't feel that you need to follow a script or recite a rehearsed answer. Be honest. Like, it's okay. They understand that you come from the military. You don't have certain experience in certain areas, and that's all right. None of us did. It worked out. Go ahead, Pat. Sorry.
And you can have 3 statements lined up ready to go at the end too. One of them is, "Thank you for coming. It was nice chatting with you." That tells them we're set, we're good. Like, I don't want to work with you, but it was thank you for coming. Nice talking with you. That you can do a push where it's, I'm really exploring right now, and I'd like to check back with you in 2 months or 6 months when I'm ready. And then if you're really interested, you don't have to please them, but if you're interested, I'd like to go to the next step. I'd like to be considered for an interview, and I'd like to talk with something on that. And so that's how you can get out of the conversation as you're doing your exploring. You've asked the questions, you've been honest and learned about them. Then you want to finish up. Thanks, nice chatting with you. Really appreciate it. Or, hey, this has been interesting. I'd like to keep the conversation going. Can you take my email and call me in 2 months, or I'll call you in 2 months? And then the final one of, I like this, is really, really excited about it. And if you're excited about it, tell them you're excited about it. Like, wow, I'm really excited about this job. This is the job I think I want to get. So, and then like Mary said, they'll talk to thousands of people. In the old days, you used to give them a resume, and then they used to flip that resume over, and that person in his own handwriting would make little notes on your conversation. And that's still happening now, where they go, oh, Pat from Boston. All right, check mark. That's all that person needs to know of. I'm going to call him, or he's interested, or, we chatted, but he's not interested, or I'm not interested in him. So they'll make their own little notes, shorthand, just like that. So that's a good way to set yourself up.
No, that's excellent tips, Pat. And Alex, were you going to say something there, or?
Yeah, Mary talked a lot about kind of being extroverted and like throwing yourself out there. And myself, I'm one of the rare extroverted nukes, but not everyone is, and that's totally fine. That's why all of us are on this and volunteer our time for this nonprofit, right? We're on your team at this conference, right? Michael and Mary are going to be there in person working for you tomorrow, right? Hey, if there's a company that you really want to talk to, you just don't know how to do an intro, sweet, go talk to Mary. She'll walk on right over there and be like, hey, I want you to talk to Doug. He's been doing this, and I think he would be, whatever, right? Like, that is a lot of what we can do is help make those awkward introductions a little bit less awkward.
Or practice, if you want to practice.
Yeah.
Before you go talk to the important people. I can be your lackey. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, Mary and I are a little jet lagged right now, and I had terrible sleep last night with daylight savings time and then jet lag. Like, I'm not, but like we're kind of good at this, like introducing people. So if you're scared about that kind of stuff, is it harder in Zoom? Yeah. Like, that's why the in-person events, like, because I've met a lot of you already, and I like most of you, and the ones that I've met, like you're all younger versions of the people in the window right here, so we want to help you out. So if you need that help, just ask us, or just tell us what you're interested in too, because like Mary and the board members don't know you as well as I do, but like I kind of have a feel for, oh, this person wants to get to this area. I know this company has a location in this area. That's the easiest intro. Hey, Sean from JP Morgan Chase. I know you live in Jacksonville. Is there some project management stuff in Jacksonville? Because Joe Smith here was thinking about maybe getting back to Jacksonville once he leaves the boat in Norfolk. Oh, yeah, well, we have some stuff there. Oh, Joe, nice to meet you. Then I walk away and I go, talk to somebody else, so that's kind of what we're trying to do here. So yeah, thank you, Alex, for kind of saying that. Yeah, that is what we're our, I don't say job, but that's what we would like to help you do. So
Mike, a couple of things I always like to say in this conference. One, on resumes. Your resume is probably full of Navy jargon that nobody understands right now. And I know that's probably hyperbole. Some of you have really great resumes. What I highly recommend is taking your resume and giving it to an extended family member or a friend. If you give it to your mom or dad, they're going to be like, "Oh, this is great, honey. You're so amazing and special." They're not going to give you any real feedback. So give it to somebody that's a little bit disconnected. That'll give you real feedback and say, "I have no idea what officer of the deck means on a submarine." So that's number one. Number two, your experience as a project manager and leader is well beyond I don't know, the lower end of the bell curve or the high end of the bell curve for the rest of your civilian peers your age. And I'm talking JOs getting straight out of the Navy after their boat or shore tour, right? People your age, when they say they've led people, they might have led one or two people, right? It's not the division, it's not the department, it's not the group of wild sailors under your control, right? So you have real tangible leadership experience of when a guy stole an Enterprise rental car and you had to go have that person return it, right? Those are things you can always speak to, and you have real project management experience, whether that was forced upon you by your XO, just throwing something your way and figuring it out, or you deliberately sought it out. You have experience that your civilian peers your age do not have. So make sure those stand out when you talk to people that are outside of like the Navy conference or the Nuke conference you go to tomorrow or the next day, right? Those things separate you from your peers.
Those are good comments. I mean, the stories that you can say compared to your brethren that are about the same age. I mean, the leadership or just the worldliness. Like, think of how many places you might have pulled into, how many different countries you might have been to, like, or just like how many friends that you have from like different states and whatever that you work with. You really, it is a very interesting job. So I was just typing an answer. I might as well tell it on the air. LinkedIn tips. Does everybody know that all veterans and active duty people can get LinkedIn Premium? And Premium is 100% worth doing because it gives you really good search options. For example, I could go search for any friend of Patrick Karolikas in the greater Boston area who went to the Naval Academy because I'm a premium member. And because Patrick's one of my friends and I can see his connections and whatever. The searches that you can do within LinkedIn Premium are tremendous. So especially if you're location driven, LinkedIn Premium is awesome. The groups on LinkedIn are really good. We have a power conference group that I feel like I underutilize, but there's that. Please request to join it, and you can come in and ask a bunch of nukes random questions like this. There's graduation groups. It's also a wonderful way to find jobs these days. Every job listing's posted on LinkedIn. Any other LinkedIn tips they were asking, guys? Anything that you
I hear that they don't track that year very closely, so you often get more than a year free.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Use a picture that isn't your uniform.
Yes.
Yeah.
Have a good picture.
Have a good picture. It doesn't have to be a professional picture in my humble paper, but just have a good picture.
Hey,
mine's a selfie. It's not that great, but it's not a Navy picture. So.
There you go. Alex.
I would say stalk a bunch of people. Like, plagiarism, like, it's legit. Just go find who's doing it really well and just steal it and do it yourself, right? Like, I know you guys have seen some really solid LinkedIn profiles. Great. Copy it.
I've done that, and I even reached out to the guy and said, "Man, I love this phrase that you used in yours. I'm stealing it." And he's like, "Awesome!" So
Yeah.
you can make connections that way.
I try never to tell you how to do LinkedIn or resume or everything like that because I interact with all these companies, so like and a lot of the hiring managers and recruiters are darn near friends anymore. So I love that I can tell them when, Alex came to a career fair, and one of the guys was really impressed with Alex, and I could say that I didn't tell him how to do his resume. I didn't tell him how to speak to you. I didn't tell him whatever. That's all Alex. So it makes me feel better that I'm able to say that, and the companies trust me more. So when I do, go to bat and say, I think you're going to like this candidate here because I've talked to them up in, Boston Spa or wherever, or Charleston. But if you go on your own and find this stuff out there and don't try to recreate the wheel yourself, good for you. How about what's some other questions? I'm trying to think we have all our like loudmouths that aren't here tonight. Will, Dan's not really a loudmouth, but startups, Will is normally our startup guy, and I guess Sarah, you're in a startup now. So Nukes do very well in startups. That's a whole another sect of jobs. Startups don't necessarily mean, sitting in a garage eating ramen noodles. It means a company that's in its initial funding stages, like just you're funded, but you haven't got your second round of seed money yet, or whatever. Angel.co is a good way to kind of sneak around and look at startups. So if you're looking at a certain area, a San Francisco, a Boston, a big university town, Atlanta, or something like that, look into the different startup communities, because you could go and do the same jobs that you might be doing for a private company for a startup, and it might be more interesting.
Mike, if it's okay, I kind of want to take that subject and move to just trying to understand job titles in general, because that's something I really struggled with when I was leaving the Navy. And that's why I joined a rotational program, because I wanted to try a bunch of different things. So at the end of the day, a program manager and a project manager is about the same thing, right? Like, you're going to be in charge of a thing, be it a concept or project itself, and you need to move it along a certain schedule at a certain pace on a certain budget, and you have to relay and organize all the other cats of all these other jobs, right, to try and move that project or program along the finish line and like make it your own. So it varies company to company, but it's a lot of soft skills. It's less hard skills. Don't get too stressed about not having Python experience or R experience. It again depends on the industry, but writ large, you'll learn a lot of the stuff that you need to learn once you're there, if you're working for a company that's worth its salt. And if you're not sure about what a job actually means, follow our LinkedIn advice. Find someone who's a vet that works at that company and say, hey, I was looking through the site at GE and I don't know what a product manager does. How does that differ from a program manager? Can we talk about it? This is a conversation I had 3 days ago, right? And that's totally fine. I didn't know that when I was you, and I'm not going to judge you for it. I'd much rather have someone ask me that instead of them figuring it out during the interview. There's a time and a place to ask that question. But one thing I remember looking for when I was getting out was I enjoyed working with teams of people and like leading a division and like the whole concept of leading a group of people. And I didn't fully grasp that when you move from the Navy to the corporate world, being in a position where you're a people leader, right? Like you're managing a team of people, it takes a lot longer. So to get something that high caliber straight out is pretty rare. And that's probably a testament to you. But I know at least at GE, you have to be very seasoned in the company and really know your stuff before you're going to be given that responsibility. And for a while, it's like, oh, you're ignoring my experience. Like, why can't I be considered for a job like this? But over time you realize, oh, I should probably learn the business a bit more and not take it personally. So don't get disheartened if those are somewhat out of your reach. No, just wanted to give my 2 cents on that.
There was supposed to be a little bit more representation tonight, and one of the gentlemen that was going to join, he's a consultant, or Alex Avoro. He's going to start helping out a little bit, and consulting is a question that often comes up, and since no one brought it up here, I was going to just talk about it now. It's something that you should at least consider, because it is a very good fit for a nuke, because A, it exposes you to a lot of different areas, and B, it's something that you're naturally good at. Just go into a random space and observe and ask questions, and either write down what's wrong, write down what's right, which people are really good at their job, which people should be fired. So it is a pretty good fit for a nuke, and you'll see nukes all through the consulting industry. It's one of those reasons you get an MBA. Like, people are saying, why should you go get an MBA? And Eric gave answer, and other than investment banking and private equity, going into a consulting firm is because there's a couple like high-end consulting firms, Boston Consulting Group, McKinsey, Bain, that you darn near need an MBA to get into, or at the very least a master's. Alex and I's mutual friend Chester here, he got a master's from MPS in like operations research, and he was able to use that as his master's instead of an MBA, and he's working at Bain right now. And so that is a way to kind of buy time to figure out what you want to do, because you do get exposed to a lot of different areas. The negative traditionally on consulting is that it used to have a pretty strict Monday through Thursday travel schedule, and you would be embedded in that company Monday through Thursday. You'd come home Friday. You'd either work from home or go to the home office on Friday, brief your bosses on what you've learned that week, and then have the weekend at home, and then go back Monday for 6 weeks or 3 months or whatever. So it was a pretty intense travel schedule. And the one question I was going to ask OJ is post-COVID, or after, not post-COVID, but now, what is consulting schedule like? Is it still as rigorous? Do you do some things online, and see, because that was always the one negative that about consulting was the schedule, because many of these things just are a non-starter with folks with families. Like, they don't want to be gone 4 nights a week for 3 months. Anyway, so hopefully, if you guys have any friends, or you're interested in consulting, or it is a really awesome job to get. It's I always say it's like getting a short duty in Millington, where you can basically pick your next job, because the networks and what you're exposed to is pretty amazing, especially the big 3 consulting firms. So that's one area that I wanted to mention to this audience here. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah. Hey, so you spurring something in my head a little bit off that, right? So I know a lot of folks, and I think the questions have kind of dried up, so that's good, right? Or everyone's exhausted. Could be either, right? But as you're kind of going through this, good questions that I think that I would have liked to have as I'm transitioning out, right? Try to think like, the companies that you're talking to, you're trying to figure out if this is going to be a good fit, if this is going to be a good relationship, right? So some easy ways to kind of differentiate big company or small company, right? There's positives of both, there's negatives, right? So that's a good thing that you can kind of start to think about, and you can ask those questions tomorrow, right? You don't need to like, hey, I only want to be a small company, right? But like, if you're going to talk to Starbucks, they're a big company. So it's worth asking those questions to learn more about, hey, what is it like to work for a big company, right? Or like Amazon, enormous company, right? What is that like working for a big company, right? So I think that's a good one. Like the work-life balance, I know we've talked about that a lot, but my old roommate who works at Bain, he works like 8 or 9 a.m. to like 11 p.m. Or if it's like a tough project, he's working about 18 hours a day and then sleeping, whenever the hell he can, right? And he's doing that for like 4 or 5 days, and then he gets the weekend off, and then it's very much a churn and burn. On the flip side, he's getting a shit ton of experience and is getting job offers in like Silicon Valley, and like it's so you get you get what you put in a little bit more, right? So, right, do you want to work? Do you want to like just absolutely churn, or do you not? Right. And I don't mean like not like a lazy job, because those don't exist, right? You'll just get fired, right? But there's different, amount of work on the scale, right? And that's a good thing that you can start asking these companies about, right? The travel piece, right? There's jobs that you travel 90% of the time, right? What is that like? Talk to the people, try to figure that out. Or there's jobs where you travel 10% of the time, right? Maybe for like 1 week in a quarter, you'd go out to a place for like a networking event or to go look at a site. Sweet. Like those are the kind of questions that I think are very valuable to try to figure out like what would this be a good fit for my priorities in my life over the next 5-10 years, whatever your time frame is. Okay.
No, that's good. That's good. And I think, I don't know, you think Sarah's normally the one that's like, this seems like it's winding down here. So, but the cool thing is, guys, like, we do these so you see who we are, and now you have 7 new people that are advocates for you, 6 if you've already met me, that you can feel free to reach out to. And so even though if you had a question, you forgot it, and you're like, oh crap, I forgot to ask, we're here. And then if you're in Washington, I see some of the people that are stationed in Bangor, whatever, please come out tomorrow night, and it should be a nice, and it'll be a relax. It's a nice, especially if you're kind of nervous about transitioning, it'll be a good kind of like in between, because like I'm not gonna have name tags for anybody, so it's gonna be informal. You can come out, and then Wednesday, not that it's not gonna be informal, it'll just be like a format like this that you can kind of come and bounce around, spend an hour, spend 4 hours, whatever. I'd like to thank all the panelists here. Sarah, this is your first one. Thank you for giving us your time here. This is kind of standard protocol. If you're ever available again, please come. Kevin, Mary, Eric, Alex, you guys are the best, and thanks for continuing to help out. And Nukes, thanks for giving us your time, because you guys are busy too. And if you ever need anything from me, get in touch with me, and hopefully we'll see a couple of you guys tomorrow night, and then definitely on Wednesday. So, all right, everybody, have a good night. Take care.
Thanks for including me, Michael.
Oh, you're awesome. Thanks, Sarah.